Hi, this is Sabri. Happy to meet you all again. In this video, we are going to discuss about the need for Spring Core. Why we need to go for Spring Core. Now, throughout the course of videos, we are going to discuss only with 5.x version of Spring Core library. Now, here I have just curated a small use case in order to understand that why we need to go for Spring Core. This have been split into multiple versions of videos until we go into the understanding of Spring Core. So it means that first we will be learning the base concept of developing an application using a standard Java technology itself without using any Spring Core elements in it. So the use case here I have is a messaging system. So if you notice here, I have a message service, and this message service is nothing but an interface. I guess you all knew what interface are. And in this interface, I'm going to carry a single abstract method, which is nothing but send. And the send method takes an argument in it. And that's all about a string argument. It's a message that you're trying to send actually. And I do have a service called SMS service. Since it's a messaging system use case, I'm taken with one of the service called SMS service. So what we technically do in the SMS is we send the message, right? So this SMS service is going to act as a class, and this class is going to implement the message service. The message service is an interface, so it carries an abstract method, and the method is going to be implemented by the SMS service class. That's what this use case is all about as of now. In this video, we have only this much of information in the use case. But as we go with further videos, you will see that we will be expanding this use case. As we expand the use case, we will see a lot of drawbacks. But before we get into that, let's see what's going to happen with this use case. I'm going to come up with an external system like client messaging system, which is a class. It's an external class. And this external class is going to make use of this messaging system. How? So here in the client messaging system, you can see that there is a variable declared as message service. Message service variable is of type message service interface, but it carries an instance of SMS service. You know that SMS service instance can be injected to the reference variable of a message service, which is an interface. And here the new SMS service is an instance which we created manually. That's very important to note down. In this use case, what you're seeing here is we have injected an instance which is manually created. Manually, the instance got created and it's been injected inside this client messaging system. So what the client messaging system needs is nothing but an instance of an SMS service, and the SMS service instance is injected into this client messaging system class. Now typically the client messaging system is ideally depending on SMS service. That's how the use cases have been framed. Client messaging system is ideally depending on SMS service instance. So we create a dependency over here. In this use case, we create a dependency. Am I talking about anything relevant to Spring here? Obviously not, but this will lead to the understanding of the Spring framework or the Spring Core library. So why I'm talking about this use case right now is this is the fundamental way in which we can understand that why we need to go for Spring Core. So what technically happens here is we are talking about something called dependency here. A client messaging system tool is typically depending on an SMS service. This SMS service instance is manually coded and injected inside the client messaging system. If you look at the next slide, here you have an expanded view of that particular client messaging system class. And here what exactly happens is you create a dependency by injecting an instance of SMS service. So client messaging system is depending on the SMS service instance. And if you look at that, this particular instance variable of that message service is going to be used to invoke the send method. The send method is defined inside the SMS service class because the SMS service class is implementing the message service. So you will find the business logic of the send method. Typically it has all the essential code in order to convey your message to the other end. So you will see the business logic of the send operations written inside the send method, which is kept inside the SMS service class. So we use that message service variable in order to call the send method, and you forward your message to the send method parameter, and your message is going to be sent to the specific destination. But the outcome here is you create a dependency, and the dependency is hard-coded. The instance creation is hard-coded, and there where I highlight with a term called tight coupling. We enable a tight coupling here. Client messaging system is tightly coupled with SMS service. So what do I mean by tight coupling? We will learn as we go along with the other videos as well. Now one more view of this client messaging system would be like this. So the key term is highlighted here, message service, which carries an instance of SMS service. So it's been manually injected. Programmer have written the instance manually, created the instance manually. I'm highlighting here again and again, it's manually injected because it creates a tightly coupled environment. Now the dependency, what you are seeing here, is actually a tightly dependent environment. Now if you just simulate this, we have a JRE, Java Runtime Environment, and inside the Java Runtime Environment you can notice that I'm talking about two different components. One is client messaging system component, another one is SMS service instance component. So client messaging system instance is actually going to depend on SMS service instance. So that's how the flow is going to be represented. So if you look at it here, the client messaging system is actually depending on SMS service instance. So client messaging system is manually going and knocking for the requirement of the SMS service instance. So here what the programmer have done is manually injected the instance inside the code of the client messaging system, and that creates a tightly coupled environment within the application. So client messaging system is tightly coupled with SMS service. Now what's a big deal in using this term called tightly coupled environment? The problem here is when you're having a tightly coupled environment, we have a bigger drawback, because if we want to have a separation of concern, it's very difficult for us to implement the separation of concern if it's very tightly coupled. So we'll discuss about that more in detail in the next video, but this video summarizes that a particular client messaging system tool is depending on another component like SMS service, and for that the dependency is manually injected inside the client messaging system. So in the next video we are going to see that how this tightly coupled environment is going to impact your overall application and how we can resolve that tightly coupled environment as well. Until then, have a great day. Thank you.